What is going on, STR Nation? This is once again your brother from another mother, Emanuele Pani. I am lucky enough to do shows on my own again this week. Mike has a couple more days in Orlando with the family. I actually went to see him on Monday to meet baby Cora and finally meet Caden. So, for those of you that were kind of keeping up, I hadn't had the pleasure to meet Mike's kids yet, and that happened this week. And I also went to do my first round of golf with Mike, which was interesting. It's a long day. I didn't quite know how long of a day it was gonna be, but it was quite fun. I definitely think I need some lessons because I was not as great as I thought I was gonna be. Even though I had never played, so I should have known. But on this week show, we have Jason Muth. He's part of the STR Secret Mastermind, but I remember meeting him back at our Miami STR WealthCon event. And at the time, he had 3 or 4 properties. He worked for himself. He has just quit his W-2. And he was very adamant about not ever wanting to start a co hosting business. And fast forward 2 years later, he has a thriving co hosting business. And he really grew it in an interesting way. He's really super niche down in his market. He's very niche down in the type of clients and owners that he has. And I'll let you hear about it. And yeah, super enjoyable conversation. You can tell that he was in the media because it was just such a great, smooth conversation. And before we get into the show, one of the things that came up on one of the coaching calls that I wanted to kind of address on here as people are always onboarding new properties, it kind of sounds like a lot of people have this idea that you get to a point when you're onboarding property that you might start becoming your own competition and start taking clients away from yourself. And you should never feel that way. And I'll explain to you why. First of all, the bigger you become in your own specific market, the more you become the market yourself. And what I mean by that is you start creating the standards when it comes to the quality of the properties, the quality of the cleaning, the quality of the amenities. And then you start dictating what the market is expecting. And so I would actually encourage you to continuously aim to really be niche down in a specific market, and especially if it's a market where you are making money. And a friend today said that depth is visually more profitable than width. And so, really thinking about that as you're growing your business, as you may be thinking, okay, I have enough property in this market, I'm going to start differentiating and going to different markets. Really, really remember that there is a lot of money in being niche down, and you kind of get to call your own shots and kind of create your own standards in a specific market. So having said that, let's roll into the show. So I'm super excited to welcome Jason Mute to the show. How are you, Jason?
What's up, E? It's great to see you again. Boy, it's been a few months since I saw you last, and it's been a couple years since we first met.
I know. And we were just going back and forth on that. So when we first met was in Miami at the STR Wealth event, which to this day remains one of my favorite STR events that we did.
To
So
this day, it is my favorite event
yeah,
that I've been to. Absolutely. I still
yeah.
think back to that as just a really momentary, monumental change in my life, and you were part of that.
Oh, I appreciate that. So welcome on the show. It's been a long time coming. When we met, you guys were doing some hosting for yourself, if I remember correctly. And you started managing yet, or you were just
Not at the time. No, no. The co-hosting that we're doing now with Pride Away Stays, which is our company, that is 8 months old at this point. We launched that back in November of 2023. We're recording this in August of 2024, so not even a year for that.
amazing? And so I see here you guys have eleven properties. So you own five and manage six.
And we just signed our seventh today as we
Congrats.
record this.
Just in
So
time for the show.
you know what? It must have been destiny because it knew that we were going to be recording today. So the
Yeah.
universe gave us the seventh contract. But yeah, when we first met, we'd been doing short-term rentals since 2016. So we were real estate investors for almost a decade at this point. I worked for a W-2 job for a long, long time. worked in the media business of all things. And half that time I was on the research side, half that time I was a sales manager and sales director on the digital side. I have experience being on camera behind a microphone dating back to the 90s. So, so I like the media biz, but toward the end of my time there, I had some money that I wanted to invest in real estate, and we were listening to a lot of Bigger Pockets at the time. And we decided to buy a second home at this lake that my husband's family has gone to for a long time. And that one decision, that one investment back in 2016 has turned into like literally my life right now. So, we didn't even know like really what Airbnb was back in 2016, let alone if we could do it. And like we kind of worked our way into success over a couple years. We bought a second property in Provincetown where we run this business in 2018. And then it was kind of just steady state for a long time. When you and I had met, we had just purchased a third property about 10 months prior to then, or 12 months prior to then, and we were in the process of building another property, which has turned out to be our absolute best of all of these. And those two are also at that same lake. We kind of parlayed one into another, and I can get into that during this discussion. And then at that event, we went under agreement for the fifth property, which is in Guilford, New Hampshire, which is the Lakes region of New Hampshire near Lake Winnipesaukee. And, I think back to that time where we were running two properties and there was a lot of uncertainty about how well we would do with these other properties.
Hmm.
To fast forward where I am today, 2 years later, and we literally are just finishing up our best month ever in terms of all of our numbers across the properties that we own and now the properties that we co-host. And co-hosting was an endeavor that 2 years ago, when you and I were talking, I said, I'm never going to co-host. I never want to do this. But Mike Sodrin's very influential, that guy.
He can be.
He
He
can
can be
be, and
for
he
sure.
he brings the best out of all of us.
Hmm.
Because I'm also in the STR Secrets Mastermind and have been for just over 2 years, and I sing its praises all the time.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that story. And I think it's a story that a lot of people can relate to in terms of, you buy the one, you buy the two, and you're like, well, maybe I can do this. You buy the three, and then you have five. So once you own five, you're like, okay, I'm starting to own quite a bit of these. And then again, cash is a finite thing in moments of time. So you're like, I don't always have the cash to buy more things. So what changed? Like, what made you go from I will never do co-hosting to hey, I might, to now having seven properties?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it still took a good year into my being part of STR Secrets Mastermind to actually decide I wanted to do it. I didn't wanna have to answer to people. I wanted to answer to myself. I worked for people for so long, like, being in the media business for a long time, we had internal clients and external clients that my team had to serve, and I just got tired of it, and I said, "Listen, I just wanna be not only my own boss, but I wanna be the ultimate arbiter of all these decisions, and I wanna be the one that is answering to myself and challenging myself and answering questions myself and making financial decisions myself." So that first year, what I wanted to do was rebrand myself as someone in the short term rental real estate investing space because everyone that I knew me as the media guy that happened to have some short term rentals on the side. Everybody since that job ended, and that kind of coincides with joining the STR Secrets Mastermind and the Miami event. Everybody that knows me from that point forward, including yourself, you only know me as this. Like, you don't even know the previous me.
Yeah. No, I
And
think you were an attorney. Like, I remember for
yeah,
some reason you saying, "I'm an
that's
attorney," and then your
that's
husband
the
is an
husband.
attorney.
The
Yeah.
husband's, yeah, and he's still an attorney, yeah, but
Yeah.
it took, my first 18 months of being in this entrepreneur space from mid-2022 through the end of last year. That was my way of saying, "Can I do this? Do I wanna do this? Can I rebrand myself? Do I have the credibility to do this? And how do I feel in this space?" And, like, a major, major goal was all that rebranding. And, I attribute meeting you, meeting Mike, meeting all the great people in the STR Secrets Mastermind, meeting people outside the mastermind as helping shed the past me and really focus in on chapter 2 of my life and my professional life. And then what turned into co-hosting was, frankly, about a year ago, we were in Provincetown. We were there for Family Week, which is Provincetown is a big gay community. It's a big LGBTQ plus community. It's probably the gayest place in the country, and I say that with all affection because I mean Key West too, and
Yeah.
Palm Springs. But like
Yeah.
we're all up there. I'm sure we're all
Yeah.
duking it out.
Yeah.
It is an aspirational community for members of the gay world, whatever corner of the gay world that you're in, to own property, to be there. It is really this paradise on the tip of Cape Cod. You could be who you are, you can do what you want, you could live a free life, and you could have a lot of fun doing it. So we were there. We've owned property there since 2018. It's gone up a lot in value because the market has really, really accelerated the past few years, even beyond just what we're seeing in the other markets. And we were thinking about maybe selling our property there and then moving the money into a different investment, maybe in New Hampshire, which is where we have the other 4 homes that we own. And, Family Week, we brought our daughter down there. It's a really great celebration of families of all different types and complexions that they've had it for 30 plus years. And we said, we can't let this go. Like we literally said to ourselves, this is not something that we can get rid of. Like it's in a great location, in a great place, and it's doing really well. We have an awesome loan. We know the market. I said, let's hang on to it and let's do something totally off the rails, which is strangely enough in my character to make really big decisions fast
Yeah.
and then dwell over stupid things.
Yeah.
And I said we're gonna launch a co-hosting business here,
Yeah.
despite the fact that I said I'm never gonna do this.
Yeah.
I think that we're uniquely qualified to do it. I think that this was the thesis that there are not a ton of people maybe listening to this or that are doing this at a really high level, like a lot of the people that are in the mastermind are, that are also part of the gay world that also own property in Provincetown. Like we had this weird, like Venn diagram of
Yeah.
3 things that intersected. And I said, I really think that we could serve this community of owners and serve guests to P Town and do it really well and speak the gay language to them too. Which is ironic that I actually have 2 straight owners. 2 of my first owners are straight.
Yeah.
But I think they like the fact
You're
that
like
we're tied
you're
into
like
the
you're
community.
like, "You're
So
not my avatar. What are you doing here? Like, please
but
get
it's okay. My
out."
avatar is anybody. I mean, like, the people that have come to visit P-Town that have stayed at my place and other places, I mean, like, a third of them, if not more, are straight couples, straight people, like, absolutely, and owners are straight there, but, like, it's a pretty gay place.
Yeah. I love that, and I think it's such a wonderful thing that it's a reality for you guys, and so if you have somebody that is listening to the show, and they maybe are in another area that is maybe similar to where you guys are, and are listening to this and are like, "Oh, wow, I could niche down like that. I could do that." What are some of the things that have helped you guys and some of maybe the issues that you have run into in niching down so much?
Um, niching down is really important. Like, I think that instead of being a generalist saying that I could manage anything, anywhere, or I could buy properties in any market across the country, there's a lot of economies of scale of doing this in a market. Like, you could really get to know a market and understand the market and build credibility within this market. You're building up one network of people. You're understanding how one local government ticks versus multiple ones. Yes, you're putting a lot of eggs into one basket, but it was a basket that we were already in. We were carrying this basket because we already had property there. So, I people ask a lot, like, well, why do you invest where we invest? And in all due respect to people, and they can choose to invest wherever they want to. You could live in Florida like you do and invest in the Rust Belt if you want to. You could
Yeah.
live in California and invest in the Smoky Mountains. You could live in the Northwest and invest in Gulf Shores. We've purposefully chosen to invest in communities that are near where we live that we enjoy going to. Simple as that, right? Like, are we getting the best return that we can get or anywhere else in the country, like with our money? Like, no, probably not. But we're getting a pretty good return. And I don't need to have all the money when I'm dead and buried. I just need to have enough to keep me happy through the rest of my life and pass them on to my daughter. So, so our priority is not like this has to be the most optimal way to invest this dollar. Our priority is, how do I live a life that is fulfilling, where I'm happy, where we're making money, where we're affecting communities? And we decided to, niche down to the two places that we have. I think that if you are listening to this and you haven't niched down, maybe take a look at the markets that you're in or the avatars that you serve and see which ones are both the most profitable and the ones that you enjoy working with the most, because sometimes the most profitable is not the market that you like to work with. Like, maybe bachelorettes are the market for you, but you hate working with them, right?
Mhm.
Like, in all due respect to bachelorettes, I don't think that I would have the stomach to deal with Nashville or Scottsdale. All right.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's just not in my character to like really kind of speak the language and do what's necessary. But there's plenty of other hosts that would do a really good job with that. So they have niched down to that. I think niching down is super important. It's something that's not innate,
Yeah,
because I think that like
definitely.
if you're it's not if you're just getting into this, you're like, man, I'll take any deals wherever I can get them, but you're casting too wide of a net. Like, you're too worried that if you go all in on one niche, it's not gonna work. Do the research to pick that niche and then go all in on it and become the expert in that niche. Like, our goal with Pride Away Stays, with Provincetown, is to be the one that people think of first, right? We don't need all of the properties in P-Town. There's about 1,000 short-term rentals in Provincetown. Right now, we just signed our 7th client. Our goal this year was to have 10 by the end of the year, and our goal next year will be a little bit higher. We're trying to have nice, steady, smart growth to make sure that we like doing this, that we like the people we're working with, that we're building good systems, and that we're doing a really good job. What's helpful to me is, like, this is not how I have to make my money primarily, and that is a difference with a lot of people that listen to, like, this podcast and others. They might be looking to get out of their W-2 job, or they might be looking to replace some income somehow. This is supplemental for us. It doesn't mean that we don't want it to be incredibly successful, and it doesn't mean that we're not taking it seriously. In fact, the complete opposite. I've spent so much time on Pride Away Stays this year, like, so many waking hours on physically this business, but most of the money that we have coming in is from the properties we own. It just is. But we have the time and the runway to do Pride Away Stays correctly, because we're not desperate. Like, we're not desperate to pick up bad clients and to cut corners. Like, we're literally not doing that, because I could shut this whole thing down and then go back to my 5 properties and ride off into the sunset. But that wouldn't be fulfilling to me as my life is leading right now.
Yeah. I love that because one of the things that I've been dwelling on quite a bit is really making sure that what I do is a labor of love. And what I mean by that is a job has been sold to us as the way to make money, and a job does make us money, but it's also a way in my mind to find purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. And so for me, I'm like, if I focus on doing a labor of love, then I'm technically never working because I'm just enjoying myself. And that's why I do everything that I do. And you guys know I was in Italy for a month. I don't take time off doing the show because for me, this is a labor of love. I don't take time off my coaching calls or my coaching clients, both my one-on-ones, the stuff that I do with Mike, the stuff that I do by myself. Because for me, those are all things that I love doing. And so whenever you find a way to cultivate a labor of love, one, I find that the money it's easy because again, you also energetically are in alignment with what you're doing. And two, you're like, great, I don't work. Like I do work, but I don't work, right? And so I also think a lot has to be said about how a lot of people, and I've said this multiple times on the show before, if you leave your W-2 as soon as your short-term rental side hustle has enough money just to replace your W-2, you're technically going from the pen to the fire because you're technically going from having a job to owning a job. And I would almost argue that you're in a worse spot. That's why I said to the fire, because then you are in a place where you have no time off, no paid vacations, no fixed hours, and you're actually going to end up working more than less.
Yeah. I have, like, oh my god, I have 4 things I wanna say. All right, let me think if I can remember these things. Like, the first one is, At my old job, I always said to myself, like, listen, like when I wake up and I say I don't want to be in this place anymore, that's when I know it's time to leave. And that was happening toward the end of my time there. But I didn't leave because not only was it easy, but it was comfortable and they were paying me pretty well, or what I thought was pretty well at the time. So they made it easy for me to stay. When it was my time to go, they made it easy for me to go also because they told me the job was no more. But I already had put some steps together to try to find my exit later on that year. I actually said something to Mike last week or 2 weeks ago on a different call where, I mentioned like in October of the previous year before I left my job, we'd come under agreement on this property here. We live in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and I had zero intention of driving to the office I was going to. And he's like, dude, that's when you quit. You quit when you went under agreement on your property. You didn't quit when they quit you. You quit then. And I'm like, you know what? You're 100% right. Number one. The other thing I want to say was you mentioned something about work being purposeful. So, not the very first, but like one of the very first jobs I had out of college, my aunt worked for a company that dealt with people that had severe disabilities, mental and physical disabilities, and she'd been in higher up there. There was a summer job there as a job coach, and she asked if I wanted to do it, and I was working a radio job at the time, and I needed somebody to do during the week, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. I ended up staying for 2 years, and I worked with people that had severe disabilities on whatever job they had. It could be very simple jobs like, assembling little things or customer service at a grocery store or a gas station or something like jobs that needed to get filled and they looked to community members that had some mental physical challenges to fill them, and our job was to keep them focused on the job because their mindset was that work is how we identify ourselves, and work leads to purpose. It gives you a purpose in your life. And even people that maybe it could be challenging to employ them in a setting without some coaching. They thought that it was important for these people to have work, and I totally agree. Like, because we all define ourselves with the work that we do. It's often the first thing that people ask us when we're at cocktail parties or barbecues or whatever it is, and everyone should have that luxury and pleasure of being able to identify themselves proudly with the work that they do, including people that have some severe challenges. So I learned that early on that work really leads to purpose in life. And then a mistake that I made, it's not quite a mistake, but like when my job ended and I finally kind of announced what I was doing next, I kinda declared that I've retired from the media business. Like, because I literally was like, "Listen, I'm not going back. Like, that job is ended. I am not getting another job in this space. I am gonna move on to the chapter 2 of my life, chapter B, whatever it is, and it's gonna be this short-term rental thing," because I already was doing it. Like, I already had feet in this space. So some people took that as, "Oh my god, this guy's retired. Like, he's not doing anything now," and that's fine. Like, "Oh, he must have done really well, and he's just off playing golf and pickleball." But I'm working harder than ever. Like, I'm doing more work than I've ever done before, and it's more fulfilling because it's for me. It's for our family. It's the work that we're doing, and I think that we do really good work, and we're doing a lot of it right now. So, like, if anyone happens to hear this and they remembered me saying I was retired from the media business, I'm not retired. We're
Yeah,
working hard.
overall, yeah, just for the
Yeah,
media business. Yeah.
it is. Yep.
So I would love, since you said that, right? And I would, and you said something earlier on the show that I wanted to kind of like hit back on, which is what I think a lot of people, and I remember like talking about this with Mike and coaching this with Mike a lot of the times when he got started is like, I'm a CPA. And I was like, you gotta quit saying that. Like, you're a real estate investor, you're no longer a CPA. And I think that is a lot of the struggle. And I was doing one of the mindset calls for the community yesterday, and that is a lot of the struggle, or the day before, whatever, is a lot of the struggle that people go through is their self-image and how they identify themselves, and in really having a hard time when you are in those social situations. It's almost catching your old natural response of like, what do you do? I'm in the media business, to being like, "Oof, no, actually, I don't do that. I do this now." Right. And so, what was that process like for you? And what are some tips that maybe are useful for people to think about as they're kind of like approaching the same milestone in rewriting their identity, their self image?
Yeah. It's hard. it's very hard, and I catch myself all the time mentioning what I used to do. And I'm proud of where I came from. I'm proud of the work that I did for a long time. I worked for some great companies. I worked for NBC Universal, Comcast. I worked for iHeartMedia. Like I worked for these really big companies, but it's hard to shed that identity and see where we're going as the new identity. One thing Mike is really big on is just getting rid of that and saying, this is who you are, declaring this is who you are going forward and telling everyone under the sun where you're headed because then they could help you get to where you're going. Like if you don't tell people that you're a real estate investor or you're a short-term rental business operator or you're a whatever you want to be, if you want to open a boutique and make cupcakes or something, if you don't tell people that you're doing that, they don't know you as that person. They know what they knew about you. So I intentionally, like once I realized that I was not going back and I am going full forward into the real estate world where I had a foot in it. I purposefully said, I'm literally giving myself 18 months to invest in myself, meaning get coaching, meet people, invest in new systems, and rebrand myself. Like, I knew how important it was to rebrand myself, and it was one of the first things that I did. So, you start talking on social media about how things are going with your short-term rental business and our investments. You post photos and videos, you start talking about, this space. We have a podcast also. It's the Real Estate Law Podcast. We talk about all different types of topics since my husband's an attorney, but we've been talking a lot about short-term rentals on there as well. And I'd certainly talk with credibility with the work that we do there. So all those things together kept building up my resume in where I am now until I realized that those are the clothes that I put on every day. I literally just it's funny because Rory just made a joke because he's seen me wearing the Pride Away Stay shirt because I recorded something prior to this for our business. And now I'm recording this. And if I'm on camera talking about Pride Away, I'd throw on a Pride Away Stays t-shirt, right? He's like, man, all you need are Pride Away Stays t-shirts now, like in your wardrobe. You don't even need anything else. And I'm like, all right, well, it's not quite that, but I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
Rory, if I'm gonna be on camera, like I'm gonna put our logo out there, like we're branding ourselves. But
100%.
um, yeah, I would give advice saying like try to shed your past identity as quickly as possible. People will, if you could build credibility on using your social media, talking with credibility on podcast discussions like this, going to meetups. If you want to be in the real estate space and you want to go to local meetups, I would, and even if it's a different category of work, I know that most people listen to this are, in the short term, medium term hotel business, but whatever you're in, get yourself into that environment. Like put yourself in front of those people that are doing what you want to be. And then immediately you're going to start becoming that same person. Like when I met you in Miami, I went by myself to this conference. Okay. I had met Chris Petsy at a local meetup. And I mentioned I was going to BPCon that year. It was in San Diego, Bigger Pockets Conference. And he's like, that's cool, but what you should go to is the STR WealthCon in Miami. So I looked it up the next day. That was like when I was like, yup, I'm investing in myself. I'm doing it. I literally signed up the next day. I think I got one of the last tickets because there were only like 100 tickets or something. And next thing I know, a couple of days later, I'm in the mastermind too. Like I talked to Mike Riley. He thought it would be a good thing for me to do. And I signed up for the mastermind. So I literally jumped all in head first, no going back. This is what I'm doing. I show up in Miami on my own, being an only child and having traveled for a job a long time ago by myself. I don't mind going places by myself. I love it. Like it's great. So, and I'm a talker, as you can tell. So I don't mind showing up somewhere not knowing anybody. Like, I literally knew
Yeah.
nobody there at that conference, and I sit down at the pool, and Bill Faith is a couple seats away from me. I hear his voice, I recognize it. I eventually swum up to him in the pool. He was talking to some clients of his and got to know him a little bit there. Julie George swims up to me at the pool also because she knew Bill, and she ended up sitting in a lounger a couple down from me. She'd just gotten off a cruise ship, and she brought some friends over to the
I remember.
to the hotel. You remember I remember it like it was yesterday. And here, these are 2 like luminaries in this business. And like to me,
Yeah.
they're just these people at the pool. So I'm building
Mhm.
this relationship with them. And then at that conference, you just start seeing that where you are is where other people are, or there's other people that are there that are a couple steps ahead of you who are there because they want to help others and grow themselves. So once I realized that the world that I was around, meeting you and others there, my friend Jake Cohen I met there, like Ruben was there, like I mean, I don't know, everyone was there, right? Like those are
Mhm.
people, and once you realize that you're all there together, nobody's like, why is this guy here?
Yeah, no.
You know, I was the weird guy that somehow just really jumped headfirst into this space, but I spoke with credibility and the eagerness to learn more, and I was just welcomed right in.
Yeah. And I think that says a lot, and I think it's one of the recipes for success is one day investing in yourself, but not just on a financial coaching. I mean, I'm a huge believer in investing in coaches. I went golfing with Mike for the first time on Tuesday. Not gonna lie, guys, it was a love-hate relationship for me because I hate not being good at stuff. And I tend to be great at like average to good at most things I put my mind to pretty quickly. And so the first 4 to 5 holes were a nightmare for me because I'm like, I wasn't getting it, and then towards the end, I was like, "This is fun," but I already contacted a coach, and I'm gonna go even if I never play golf again, I'm just like, I believe in coaching so much that I'm like, I'm gonna learn the right fundamentals because I know it's gonna help me, and then if I ever go back to golfing, it would suck a little bit less. And then 2 is just like Dave Conway says this to me all the time, is like, "The moment you make a decision. And once a decision is made, the decision is made. And anything that is not in alignment with that decision, in terms of your standards of thinking, your emotional standards, or your result standards, needs to be taken out of the pictures. And so many of us are just terrible decision makers. And it is honestly the only thing that is wrong with you. If you're listening to this and you're like, why haven't I been able to grow my company like Jason has been able to grow his company as quickly as Jason's? Because he made a decision and nothing that was below the decision has been allowed to survive in his universe.
Mhm.
So if you
There's
don't have the stuff you want, it's because you haven't made a decision.
there's some weird intentionality to what I'm doing, but I feel like when I hear you break it down that way and other people that feel so regimented with how they operate based on what they're learning from, mentorship groups or what have you, like, I don't feel like I've stumbled my way into the success, but I feel like I found the level of success that other people have found as well, but I just didn't do it the same way that they did it. Like, I think as you broke that down, I'm like, yeah, that's I think what has helped me recently. Like I have made some really big decisions quickly. I've kind of always done that. I mean, like with all the real estate that I purchased, there's been very little dwelling of any of the properties that I bought when I bought them. Like it's very like I want to go buy something, let me go find it, boom, I have it. That
Done.
simple. All right. But
Yeah,
but I'm telling you, like there's a part of me that I still love going to like we have BJ's Wholesale up here. I don't know if you have that in Florida, but it's like
we do.
Costco.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I tell you, I'll go through the store. Like if I didn't buy everything in advance and have them bring it to my car, if I want to just walk the store and do it, you got 300 bucks of stuff in your cart. I will still sit there with my phone before I check out, finding what coupons I have to save 20 bucks, and I'll feel great about myself and walk out the door. Right. It's a strange investment in time when you think about it, but there's part of my brain that still says, I didn't game the system, but I found a way to save some money. In the scheme of life, that's nothing. Like it's inconsequential money, but I don't know, I still kind of think that way for some of those small decisions in my life, but the big ones, you just make it and move on.
Yeah. So I it's funny that you said that because I saw a quote, a clip from Mark Cuban recently where he talked about that. Is like, if I'm buying something that I want, I'll buy it and not care about it, but I'll still buy a year worth of toilet paper, toothpaste because it's cheaper. And this is a guy that has billions of dollars, but he thinks exactly the same way. It's like, look, on the things that I know I'm gonna need that are gonna be cheaper, I'm gonna buy them this way because I know they're cheaper. And it's not about being thrifty, being cheap. It's just being smart, right? So I want to be respectful of your time. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, so on the 11 properties, what, and this was a question that we used to ask quite a bit at the beginning, but what systems are you running on? What does the team look like?
Mhm.
Give me a lowdown of all that stuff.
So 2 years ago, you're looking at it.
Yeah.
That's what it
You're
was, right?
with me, myself, and
Uh,
I. Yeah.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had cleaners, right? So cleaners will clean our properties, handymen will do handyman stuff that we don't do ourselves. In terms of tech stack, so we're working with Hospitable as our property management software. We do have StayFi in a couple of our properties that are collecting some email addresses. We have Price Labs that we use for dynamic pricing. And that has been, I mean, I can go on and on about the numbers a couple of years ago versus this year. Like I literally was just looking at it today, to kind of prepare for this conversation, but it's also end of month. And it is startling. Like, I mean, I track everything every single month. Like, so I know exactly, I track every booking down to the day it came in. So I kind of know trends. And man, I have this like line graph that you could track back to the month that I left my job or that my
Mhm.
job left me. And it was like steady state. And then literally there was an inflection point of the money we have coming in. And it's like this now, up to the right. I don't know which way I should be going, I guess, on
Yeah,
camera. No,
yeah.
so we have Price Labs, we have Hospitable, we have some StayFi going on. I work with TouchStay for interactive guidebooks. I also used to work with Hostfully; they had great ones too. We just kind of switched over to TouchStay because it was a little bit more interactive. We're working with Market My STR, Bill's company, so we do that for emails. We do that for our direct booking landing pages. I have a couple of VAs at this point, so we don't have full 24/7 coverage. But I did just switch from my first VA who was doing 25 hours a week with me to 60 hours a week. We have somebody else covering the other 2 days as well. But my VA, who came through Mark Regas's company, Vision Management, is great because I looked for somebody that actually had interest in digital marketing, video production, audio production, and I think I've made the job more interesting to him, because in a typical day with the properties that we have right now, maybe we'll get between 5 and 15 different things that happen with guests. It's not constant all day, every day. So I've filled in those gaps with podcast production, with some video production work, with some marketing work, writing emails, doing websites, doing landing pages. Like there's always kind of a new thing, and he's super eager and willing to like learn how to do those kind of things. A lot of times, like I'll say, "Hey, there's this thing that I need you to go figure out with this vendor we're working with. Can you do it?" And he does that. One of the tasks this week was, can you get our properties ready for fall and winter bookings to kind of change the copy and the photos and things around? Make sure you archive what we have right now. And before you change anything, let me know what you're changing. But go ahead and see how you want to optimize it. And he's off doing that right now. So having people like that has really helped move my time away and to help grow Pride Away stays. So with Pride Away stays, we use all the same technology and all the same tools. I should say we use open phone for communication. So I have an open phone. I have two open phone numbers that my VA can also check those, and I use WhatsApp because some of my cleaners like communicating on WhatsApp. So I've taken this is something new. I took all of my communications away from my own phone number, which is what some of my cleaners and handy people communicated with me for years. And I said, "Hey, I'm changing my phone number," and I gave them the WhatsApp number or the open phone number, and now my VAs could also see those communications that come in if and when I need them to take over all those communications. So I think that's the tech stack. I mean, we have email domains through Google. There's probably some other boring stuff I'm not thinking about.
Yeah, awesome. I love the thinking on the open phone because that is kind of setting you up to become more and more passive as the time goes on. Just kind of goes to show what you're thinking about. So, Jason, where can people learn more about you? Where can people come and find you, book your properties? Give me all that.
Yep, couple easy things. So my name, Jason Muth, muth.com. That'll bring you to links to lots of my things. Pride Away Stays, if you want to learn about that, you go to prideawaystays.com. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. It's an easy way to find out about Provincetown and the properties we have there. If you want to see the properties that we own, we have those on a domain called straightforwardstrs.com. So the word straight, the word forward, and then strs.com. You'll see the 5 properties that we own there. You can book them direct if you'd like. Yeah. And you can find me on all the social media networks that you would expect.
Awesome. And then the last question we ask all of our guests is, what's your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
Oh, God. Have
You knew
confidence
this
in
was coming.
yourself.
So, yeah.
I know. Have confidence in yourself. Like, believe that you belong in the room with the people that you're talking to, interacting with. Don't feel like an imposter. Like once you make the decision that you belong where you are and that you're doing what you're doing, then that's where you belong. Like, it's simple. Once I got that out of my head that I didn't belong in this space, I was like, sky's the limit, right? Like, this is what I do. This is who I am. People that are listening to this, who are still listening to this episode, who've never heard my voice or seen me before, that's all you know me as, right? So I am that to you. I have to shed what I used to be and continue to remind myself where I'm going and what I want to be and what I am now. So that's my advice. Like, once you get that out of your head, you can get successful.
Love that. It was great to have you on the show. I'm super proud of you for the journey. I remember our conversation super clearly in Miami. And as always, to me, the most inspiring thing and the reason why I do this show is for stories like this, right? It's for people that have taken a chance on themselves, have been willing to rewrite their story as to who they are as people. And especially people like you that have found a labor of love and that are very focused on the important things like family, creating a legacy for your daughter and spending time with your husband and your daughter and just the family unit and the things that matter. To me, that's what this is all about, right? If I can't spend time with family and the people that I love, but I have business that makes me a bunch of money, I don't care. It's not something that inspires me. I rather make less money and be able to spend a month at home with family any day of the week. So I do hope the show was valuable for you guys, and we'll see you next week. Ciao, guys.
Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.